In a realm forever veiled by falling ash and cloaked in a pervasive, chilling mist, the fragile threads of civilization threatened to unravel. A year had passed since the seismic overthrow of the tyrannical Final Empire, a millennium-long dominion ruthlessly enforced by the enigmatic Lord Ruler. His demise, celebrated as the dawn of a new age, had paradoxically plunged the world into an accelerating apocalypse. This is the harrowing saga of the hero of ages, the climactic final chapter in a grand narrative of struggle, revelation, and the ultimate, agonizing sacrifice for the survival of all. The very air of the world had grown heavier, thicker, permeated by an incessant, gritty ash that now fell not as a predictable, manageable shower, but as a relentless, suffocating snowfall. It draped every surface in a monotonous gray, blurring outlines and muffling sounds, imbuing the landscape with an air of perpetual twilight and decay. The mists, once a spectral curtain that retreated with the dawn, now clung to the land with chilling tenacity, a dense, swirling presence that seeped into bones and hearts, bringing with it a profound sense of foreboding. Worse still, the ground beneath their feet had become treacherous, prone to violent convulsions. Earthquakes, once anomalies, were now terrifyingly frequent, tearing jagged fissures through ancient cities, toppling monuments, and reshaping the very contours of the earth, as if the world itself was writhing in agony. Humanity, having lived for 1,000 years under the iron fist of the Lord Ruler's oppressive but stable rule, found itself cast adrift in an escalating cosmic nightmare, its fragile hopes slowly eroding under the weight of an inescapable dread. At the epicenter of this unfolding catastrophe stood Vin and Elendventure, their fates inextricably bound to the dying world. Vin, the young, fiercely independent street urchin who had risen to become a formidable Mistborn, capable of wielding the arcane powers of allomancy with deadly grace, bore the immense weight of having personally slain the Lord Ruler. This act, once her greatest triumph, now haunted her, interwoven with the unsettling prophecies that began to surface in the wake of his demise. A chilling premonition gnawed at her, a growing certainty that her victory was merely the first, misguided step in a far grander, more terrifying design. Her innate curiosity, sharp as a honed blade, was now focused on deciphering the ancient texts, on peeling back the layers of deception to understand the true nature of the powers that controlled their world. She felt the world dying around her, its slow, agonizing decay mirroring a crushing despair that settled deep within her soul. Her connection to the mists, already profound, had deepened to an almost symbiotic level, transforming them from a mere phenomenon into an almost sentient presence that whispered tantalizing secrets and chilling warnings, a constant, chilling reminder of a vast, malevolent force stirring from its ancient slumber, awakened by the disruption of the Lord Ruler's reign. Elend, once a naive, bookish nobleman, a dreamer captivated by ideals of democracy and justice, had been forged in the crucible of rebellion and now stood as a reluctant emperor. His youthful idealism was ceaselessly tested by the brutal, unforgiving realities of a world actively crumbling around him. He clung to his vision of a free, just society, a beacon of hope in the encroaching darkness, but the immediate, existential threats of famine, relentless quakes, and the ceaseless internecine strife among the remaining noble houses made such aspirations seem a distant, impossible luxury. Though a scholar at heart, relying on logic and diplomacy, he understood that in these desperate times, the leader must be willing to embrace violence, to wield it with grim necessity for the greater good. He had transformed into a warrior, an emperor who fought alongside his dwindling legions, his steel clashing with theirs, and in doing so, he had earned the grudging respect and loyalty of many, though doubt continued to gnaw at his own resolve. He spent countless hours poring over dusty, ancient texts, seeking answers, desperately trying to decipher the Lord Ruler's true, veiled motivations and the meaning of the cryptic messages he had left behind. More than anything, he yearned for a way to save his people, to embody the true hero they so desperately needed, even if it meant making unimaginable, soul-shattering sacrifices. Their perilous journey began with a desperate, almost feverish quest to locate the mythical Well of Ascension, a fabled source of immense power that the Lord Ruler had supposedly utilized to achieve his terrifying immortality. They clung to the belief that it held the ultimate key to saving their world, perhaps even reversing the catastrophic environmental shifts that threatened to consume them all. However, the Lord Ruler's final, chilling pronouncement, "I saved you all," reverberated in their minds, a haunting paradox that hinted at a deeper, infinitely more sinister truth behind his 1,000-year reign of terror. He wasn't merely a brutal despot, he was, impossibly, a twisted guardian, and his demise had unwittingly unleashed something far more ancient, more malevolent than he himself had ever been. Their expedition was fraught with dangers at every turn, an endless gauntlet of both natural calamities and orchestrated horrors. Bands of savage colossi, monstrous humanoids with skin stretched taut over their bones and an insatiable lust for blood, once the Lord Ruler's mindless shock troops, now roamed the shattered land in unbridled, berserker frenzies. They attacked cities, decimated caravans, and slaughtered indiscriminately, offering no quarter. The increasingly scarce food and resources fueled a desperate, primal struggle for survival, pushing humanity to the very precipice of self-destruction. Adding to the internal strife, the few remaining inquisitors, terrifying figures with steel spikes driven through their eyes, their grotesque forms draped in black, hunted them relentlessly, driven by a perverse, fanatical loyalty to the Lord Ruler's warped, decaying legacy. The crew, that ragged but fiercely loyal band of thieves, misfits, and hardened veterans who had formed the beating heart of the rebellion, remained steadfast, though their morale was tested daily by the escalating horrors. Sazed, the revered keeper, a master of knowledge and memory, a walking encyclopedia of faiths and philosophies, found himself grappling with a profound, soul-crushing crisis of faith. As the world crumbled around him, and his meticulously catalogued collection of religions proved utterly useless in preventing the apocalypse, he began to question the very existence of a benevolent God. He continued to meticulously record every detail, every chilling prophecy, every crumbling historical account, clinging to the desperate hope of piecing together the unfathomable puzzle of their dying world. He was the intellectual anchor of the group, a fount of wisdom, but his despair was palpable, a heavy shroud that seemed to weigh down his very being. His relentless pursuit of knowledge, once a source of comfort, now felt increasingly futile in the face of inevitable, utter destruction. He grappled with the terrifying implications of the Lord Ruler's true purpose, the chilling notion that the ancient prophecies he had so carefully preserved might be incomplete, or worse, deliberately misleading. He found himself inexplicably drawn to the cryptic writings of the Lord Ruler, desperately trying to understand the impossible paradox of his final, chilling words. Or, the Khandra, a shape-shifting creature of unsettling appearance, capable of adopting the physical forms of the dead by wearing their bones, provided a unique, often unsettling perspective. He possessed the Lord Ruler's fragmented memories, allowing him to offer chilling insights into the tyrant's final thoughts and intricate, desperate plans, albeit through a highly filtered and often cryptic lens. His unwavering loyalty to Vin, born from their shared experiences and the profound emotional bonds forged in the crucible of their previous struggles, was a testament to the resilience of their connection. He was a constant companion, a silent, watchful observer who held crucial, terrifying pieces of the grand puzzle within his adopted, decomposing form. He was a living archive, a repository of unspeakable knowledge, yet even he was bewildered by the accelerating, seemingly unstoppable decay of the world. As they delved deeper into the enigmatic prophecies and the Lord Ruler's meticulously hidden clues, a horrifying realization began to dawn upon them. The Well of Ascension was not what they had believed it to be. It was not a benign source of power, a fount of salvation, but rather a meticulously constructed, ancient prison for an unimaginably powerful, malevolent entity known as Ruin. The Lord Ruler, it turned out, was not simply a brutal tyrant, but an unwilling, self-sacrificing guardian. He had surrendered his own humanity, had burdened himself with the crushing responsibility of holding Ruin captive, meticulously engineering the ashfall and the mists, creating the Colossus and the Khandra. All as desperate, necessary measures to suppress the entity and prevent the total annihilation of the world. His brutal reign, his apparent tyranny, was a necessary evil, a desperate, agonizing measure to preserve life, albeit in a twisted, oppressive form. This revelation was a staggering blow, forcing them to re-evaluate every single thing they had believed about their enemy, about their rebellion, and about the very nature of heroism itself. The hero they had celebrated, the girl who had struck down the tyrant, was merely the unwitting catalyst who had unleashed the ultimate, cosmic evil. The moment of bitter truth arrived when Vin, driven by a desperate, fading hope and the lingering, almost spectral influence of the Lord Ruler's preserved memories, finally reached the Well of Ascension. There, in a moment of tragic miscalculation and overwhelming pressure, she made a grave, irreversible mistake. Instead of harnessing the power within the well, of utilizing it as a weapon or a shield, she unknowingly released it, believing she was preventing a cataclysm, acting as the hero the prophecies had foretold. In doing so, she unleashed ruin upon the world. The entity, ancient beyond comprehension, malevolent beyond imagining, had been subtly manipulating events, meticulously influencing prophecies and whispering insidious suggestions into vulnerable minds for centuries, guiding Vin to unknowingly, tragically, set it free. The true horror of the Lord Ruler's final, chilling words echoed now, reverberating with the weight of cosmic irony. I saved you all. His actions, however terrible, however brutal, had kept the world safe, contained. With ruin unleashed, the world plunged into an agonizing, true apocalypse. The earthquakes intensified, becoming monstrous, planet-shattering convulsions that tore apart even the most resilient cities, leaving them as shattered husks. Ash fell relentlessly, in suffocating drifts, burying everything beneath its suffocating gray blanket. The mists, once merely a chilling presence, became sentient and malevolent, preying on the living, their tendrils reaching out to drain the very life force from those caught within their ethereal embrace. Food became impossibly scarce, leading to widespread famine and cannibalism. The Colossus, now unchained from any lingering control, rampaged across the land in endless, bloodthirsty tides, sowing destruction and death with impunity. Humanity was faced with an adversary not of flesh and blood, but of pure, destructive intent, a cosmic force that sought not merely to destroy, but to utterly break and reshape the very essence of reality. Ruin's ultimate goal was not simply annihilation, but erasure, to dismantle all creation until nothing remained, a return to absolute void. As the world rapidly unraveled, the embattled crew raced against the dwindling sands of time, desperately trying to uncover the remaining secrets painstakingly left behind by the Lord Ruler, hoping to understand how to defeat an enemy that was both invisible and terrifyingly all-pervasive. They learned that ruin, while immensely powerful, was bound by certain, fundamental rules. It could only influence and destroy what already existed. It possessed no power of creation. It communicated through subtle, insidious alterations in written text, whispered chilling suggestions into the minds of the vulnerable, and meticulously manipulated those who were already broken or consumed by despair. Sazed, his spirit ravaged by despair, clung to his scholarly pursuit with a desperate, almost obsessive tenacity. He continued to meticulously study the ancient texts, particularly the cryptic annotations left by the Lord Ruler, notes hidden within religious doctrines that now seemed to hold a terrifying, new significance. He made a profound, unsettling discovery. The Lord Ruler had not merely been a tyrant, but a ferrochemist, a talisman with the unique ability to store and retrieve attributes in metal mines, allowing him to survive for centuries and accumulate a vast, unfathomable reservoir of knowledge. Sazed realized that the Lord Ruler, before his ascent to godhood, had been a humble talisman named Reshek. He had journeyed to the Well of Ascension to defeat the Deepness, a terrifying, mist-like creature that had been slowly consuming the world, but had instead found two opposing, primordial powers: preservation and ruin. The true, horrifying history of the world was slowly, agonizingly unveiled before Sazed's eyes. Preservation, a benevolent, creative force, and ruin, its destructive, nihilistic counterpart, had, in a cosmic paradox, collaborated to create the world and humanity. However, ruin, in its very essence, had sought to obliterate everything it had helped bring into being. Preservation, in a selfless act of unimaginable sacrifice, had splintered a part of its own divine being to trap ruin, becoming severely weakened in the process. The Well of Ascension was not a source of power, but a prison, a repository of preservation's remaining, fragile essence, which held ruin captive. The Lord Ruler, Reshek, had stumbled upon this terrifying truth, and in his desperate attempt to save humanity from the deepness, he had inadvertently absorbed preservation's remaining power, becoming the Lord Ruler. This immense power allowed him to manipulate the very land itself, to push and pull entire continents, to reshape the earth, and to create the unique, brutal planetary conditions that would keep ruin at bay. The constant ashfall and the omnipresent mists, the creation of the Colossus and the Khandra, were all integral parts of his intricate, agonizingly desperate plan to protect the world, a thousand-year-long act of self-imposed villainy for the sake of survival. The prophecies of the hero of ages were indeed real, but they had been deliberately twisted and corrupted by ruin's insidious influence. The true hero was meant to go to the Well of Ascension not to release the power, but to use it to mend the fundamental crack in the world that allowed the deepness to fester. Vin, unknowingly, had fulfilled the corrupted prophecy, releasing ruin and ushering in the true apocalypse. As the endgame approached, Sazed made a groundbreaking, earth-shattering discovery: the true location of the last remaining cache of atium, a legendary metal with the power to show the future, an absolute necessity for fighting ruin. He deciphered that the atium was not just a metal, but a physical manifestation of ruin's own body, its very essence, its splintered divine form. By consuming atium, a Mistborn could gain terrifying foresight, allowing them to see the future movements of their opponents, a devastating, almost insurmountable advantage in combat. The final confrontation was set against the backdrop of a world teetering on the precipice of non-existence. Elend, now a full-fledged, powerful Mistborn, having gained his abilities from the mists that now flowed through him, faced a direct, desperate battle against the seemingly endless Colossus legions. He fought with grim determination, knowing that his efforts were merely a delaying tactic, a desperate way to buy Vin the precious, fleeting time she needed. His allomancy, once a fledgling power, had grown immensely, allowing him to blaze through the enemy ranks, a shining, desperate beacon in the encroaching darkness. He confronted the despair of his exhausted soldiers, reminding them of the sanctity of life and the crucial importance of fighting for a future, however bleak it might seem. Vin, consumed by a crushing guilt and the agonizing knowledge that she had directly unleashed ruin, struggled with the overwhelming pressure. She realized that her victory over the Lord Ruler was a tragic, cosmic mistake, a grand illusion orchestrated by ruin itself. The mists, once her allies, now whispered with a malevolent presence, threatening to consume her, to draw her into the embrace of destruction. She sensed ruin's power growing, its insidious influence seeping into every corner of the world, twisting minds and corrupting souls. She knew, with chilling certainty, that she was the only one who could truly fight it, but the burden was almost unbearable, a weight that threatened to crush her very spirit. She began to understand the profound connection between the mists and the power at the well, and the horrifying truth about her own existence. She was a creature of both creation and destruction, a delicate, almost impossible balance of the two opposing forces. She embraced her role, not as a glorious hero of legend, but as a warrior fighting for the last, fading vestiges of hope. She understood now that the mists were not just a natural phenomenon, but the very essence of preservation, a benevolent force that had been trying to guide her, to empower her, even in its severely weakened, shattered state. The climax arrived in a blinding flash of cosmic energy when Vin confronted ruin directly. Ruin, being an intangible, incorporeal force, could not be physically struck or contained. Instead, it sought to manipulate and corrupt, to break Vin's will, to devour her spirit. The battle was not one of steel and muscle, but of minds, of wills, of the very essence of existence. Vin, empowered by the lingering essence of preservation and her own immense, indomitable strength of will, fought against ruin's insidious whispers, its chilling attempts to sow doubt, to cultivate despair, to lure her into its destructive embrace. She realized, with a flash of insight, that ruin fed on discord, on destruction, on the breaking of all things, and that true power lay not in destruction, but in creation, in connection, in the fragile, resilient unity of humanity. In a desperate, final, heart-wrenching act, Vin, understanding that ruin was attempting to consume preservation's scattered essence, to become whole and unleash ultimate destruction, made the ultimate sacrifice. She absorbed the last remaining tendrils of preservation, effectively becoming the shattered deity, a living vessel for both creative and destructive forces, a fusion of two warring cosmic powers. But even with this immense, godlike power, she knew she could not defeat ruin directly in a battle of raw strength. Instead, she drew ruin to her, embracing its destructive essence, willingly submitting to its consuming power, and in a cataclysmic surge of energy, she sacrificed herself, becoming one with the malevolent force. In doing so, she merged her own existence with that of ruin, creating a singular, unified entity, a perfect, agonizing balance of creation and destruction. In that moment, she became the vessel for the final, ultimate power, the true, unexpected hero of ages, destined to bring about either salvation or utter, cosmic annihilation. At the very same, pivotal moment, Sazed, having reached the absolute depths of despair, having seemingly lost all remnants of faith, made a crucial, mind-altering discovery. He found the Lord Ruler's final, most carefully guarded secret, a message hidden in plain sight, a revelation of the true nature of the Lurchers, a term he had mistakenly applied to the Kandra, and the Kandra themselves. He realized that the Terrace people were not just diligent historians and keepers of knowledge, but also ancient genetic engineers, who had subtly altered some of their own, creating the Kandra to be a vessel for minds and memories, and the true Lurchers to be the ultimate, ancient guardians of the world, beings who had been designed to hold the knowledge of the true nature of their planet. He discovered, with a profound sense of awe and terror, that the very planet itself was a vast, complex ferrochemical construct, a living database of knowledge and power, a final, desperate attempt by preservation to protect humanity, to provide a blueprint for its ultimate salvation. Through his relentless, agonizing pursuit of knowledge, Sazed finally uncovered the core, terrifying truth of the universe. That preservation and ruin were not just two opposing forces, but two aspects of a greater, shattered cosmic entity, a single, divine power that had been violently fractured. He realized that the only way to restore balance, to heal the world and prevent its utter destruction, was for a single individual to ascend to the power of both shards, to become the vessel of both creation and destruction, to reunite what had been torn asunder. As Vin and Ruin collided in a cosmic explosion of light and power, a flash that resonated across dimensions, Sazed, having deciphered the final, crucial clues, understood that he was the one destined to be the true hero of ages. With Vin's ultimate, selfless sacrifice, the power of both preservation and ruin, now a single, unified entity, was unleashed upon the world, seeking a new host. Sazed, filled with the collective knowledge and the profound despair of all the faiths he had meticulously studied, all the beliefs he had held and lost, embraced this immense, unimaginable power. He transcended his mortal form, becoming the new god of their world, a being with the power to recreate, to mend, to bring about a glorious new beginning from the ashes of the old. In a breathtaking, almost incomprehensible moment of divine creation, Sazed used his newfound, awe-inspiring power to reshape the very world. He gently, purposefully pushed the sun closer to their planet, bringing light and warmth back to a land that had long been shrouded in perpetual ash and shadow. He caused the relentless ash to settle, transforming it into rich, fertile soil, a promise of new life. He meticulously altered the orbit of the moons, creating a predictable, comforting cycle of day and night, banishing the eternal, malevolent mists forever. He brought about a new world, a vibrant, lush paradise, a stark, beautiful contrast to the desolate, dying landscape that had existed for 1,000 agonizing years. He created new life, new ecosystems, and a world where humanity could truly thrive, free from the tyrannical shackles of a broken past. The story concludes with a profound sense of peace and a fragile, hard-won hope. The world is reborn, cleansed of the choking ash and the chilling mists, vibrant with new life. Humanity, though deeply scarred by the apocalypse and the unimaginable sacrifices made, now has a chance to rebuild, to forge a new destiny. The survivors, including Elend, who grieved for Vin but embraced his role as a leader in this new, green world, Spook, now freed from Ruin's insidious whispers and finding his own strength and purpose, Breeze, Ham, and the remaining members of the intrepid crew, witnessed the dawn of a new age, a testament to their enduring spirit. Sazed, now a transcendent, cosmic entity, reflected on his incredible journey, a journey from a quiet scholar to a reluctant god. He understood the profound paradox of the Lord Ruler's reign, the heartbreaking necessity of his tyranny, and the agonizing choices he had made to protect humanity from a far greater evil. He accepted his new, weighty role as the benevolent guardian of this reborn world, his actions guided by the profound lessons learned from the myriad religions he had once catalogued, now woven into the fabric of his divine consciousness. He understood, with ultimate clarity, that true heroism lay not in power, but in selfless sacrifice, in the unwavering willingness to do what was necessary for the greater good, even if it meant enduring immense, soul-crushing suffering. He had become the ultimate keeper, not just of knowledge, but of the very essence of life itself, ensuring that the mistakes of the distant past would not be repeated in this new, verdant future. He left behind subtle messages, guiding humanity in their new world, hoping they would learn from the profound, tragic mistakes of their ancestors and build a truly harmonious, enlightened society. The world had been saved, but the cost had been immense, immeasurable, and the memory of those who sacrificed everything would forever linger, a haunting echo in the newly green, vibrant lands.